Hey there, listener. Welcome to the Deep Share Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Rouse, and for the last couple of decades, I've slowly been opening my eyes to a very different world than the one I grew up hearing about. And the more conversations I have with interesting people, the more mystifying this world becomes. So without further ado, let's get deep.
We've got science to celebrate! Demons list now! After what, baby? Come on!
There is rebellion in the wind. It will be crushed.
Everything I've said is true, it's real.
Dinosaur fossils? God put those here to test our faith.
A damn lie, I saw them with my own eye!
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
We did illusions, man! None of it is true!
I'm not insane!
This is mass madness, you maniacs! In God's name, you people are the real thing! We are the illusion!
Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Nice to
and
meet
sorry
you.
for being tardy to the party. Very nice to meet you. Thank you so much for having me on.
No worries at all. No worries at all, dude. I was thinking this is probably going to end up being more of like a conversation rather than like an interview because,
Great. Yeah.
dude, everything you've been talking about, while some may find it controversial, it's not scary to me because, dude, I've been floating in these weird realms for years with not that many people to talk to. I could talk all day with someone about JFK and you know, all kinds of conspiracy theories. But when I get into these kind of murky waters, that's when even the most, like even the craziest conspiracy theorists will be like, no, I can't.
Yeah.
I don't. What? No, you lost me. Totally lost me. And it's rough. It's rough, dude.
You
So
know,
I mean,
live in JFK-ville. I live in Dallas, Texas, where the
No
day that I got offed, you know, where the theater went down.
yeah, dude, that's pretty wild. Right there.
On the 33rd parallel.
Oh, well, how about
Dallas
that? You're
is
right.
on the 33rd parallel.
Yeah, you're in the right spot.
I think that I've been here my entire working adult life. I've been here for about 14 years.
Wow.
And it's really the longest place I've lived anywhere in my entire life. And I think that I was put here for a reason.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's
The
good
belly of the
because
beast.
aren't we all, right? We're trying to figure that out. So, I
Yeah.
mean, let's get my audience a little bit of background on the work you've been doing and the thoughts that have been flying out of Real Eyes Radio.
Oh, yeah. Realize Radio is so fun. A little bit of background. You know, I started my whole quest, I say, in this world of, you know, truth exploration, discovery, conspiracy. I mean, I live on Twitter. Twitter's my world. Twitter's where I do all my, I communicate, I share, interact. I'm on Twitter, you know, as Human Vibration. And I've been I love conspiracies and I love to dig deep into them. And I kind of like to, now I have this new lens through which to look at everything that I've ever looked at before. And I've always been fascinated with conspiracies, but now I just look at everything in a different way. And I share that on, like, Human Vibration is really just a repository for now what I feel like are all these crystallizations. I can still talk about JFK. I'm fascinated by JFK, but now I just see it as a different thing. I'm like, oh, that's why none of these make sense. Oh, that's why that's why everything's so implausible, unsolvable. It's like, oh,
Right.
It's designed, this is excellent gameplay. It's designed to be unsolvable. It's
Yeah, why are
designed-
there so many different avenues you could take in the JFK case, right? You could take like seven different
Pick your-
angles and you
pick
could
your
sound
adventure.
convincing, you know? Yeah.
And there is documentation, official documentation, to support so many of these rabbit holes that we find ourselves down. Like, there's real, I mean, I would say one of my big fascinations for a time, maybe in 2017, was like the Podesta emails. Like,
Yeah,
so you
me
could like
too.
search those. You could like search those with targeted searches. And I love a good targeted search. Get me on there, get my dates going, get my keywords, get my not words, the words that you don't want to search for, that you want to omit from your search. that's actually one of the most powerful tools that I've found, is like omitting words and things from your search. Anyway, yeah, so you can, like, if you want to find things about someone but not about a certain other thing,
Oh,
like
right.
just really
Yeah.
specific. Like I remember when I was searching, just real quick aside, I remember that came in real handy when I was searching, when I was on my John Bonet quest, my quest to just get to the bottom of what John Bonet is or was, and it is and or was. And
Yeah.
in that, I was looking into the pageants, and like I was trying to look for these pageants outside of the world of John Bonet. And what happened when I removed her from this quest, from this search for this information, they didn't exist. Like, I realized that so much of her story was really just fabricated for the story of her, for her purpose. And like outside of it, without John Bonet, there was no pageants before her, no pageants after her, blah blah, just existed.
Really?
Yeah, that was one of the. So all of
Now
she
we could
yeah.
separate local level versus like national television is what
This
you're.
is
I'm
her.
assuming that.
I'm pageants in general. They've got to
Right.
exist.
Right.
Sure,
Yeah.
they have.
Yeah.
But the ones that I mean, this is just a quick aside, a very
Mhm.
fascinating part about the case. So she was purported, she participated for 1 year in pageants from age 5 to 6. Her story ends at age 6, and so for 1 year she participated in, I think the list is maybe 7 pageants. So some hyper local, like Little Miss Charlevoix, which is like a little lake town in Michigan, to things that sound very prestigious, like Little Miss, a Royale Miss, or things that sound like they're a little bit more not. But all of them were hyper local, and none of these pageants existed outside of Jean Monnet. Like they didn't have other version. They didn't have other years. They didn't have other contestants. It was like the years Jean Monnet
Wow.
won were like the first, last, and only times that they had these pageants. They seemed to have only existed inside the story of Jean Bonnet, which is an interesting thing. Like that's like that's just one of those things that make you go, And so like, I guess, okay, so kind of getting into Realize Radio. So my whole thing, I got onto Twitter, like I had this idea about John Bonet. I shared it. It's a thread. If you want to read that, if you want to go into that, it's pinned to my profile at Human Vibration on Twitter. It's pretty interesting because it's like,
Yeah. It's like 27 long. It's awesome.
it's really long. Like it's very
Yeah.
long.
Deep dive.
It's a deep dive, but it was fascinating to me. Anyway, so that was like kind of my portal into this world, and where I started understanding that there was a whole technology component, there was a whole psychological, psychospecific component, like literally our psyche, our collective conscious. Also a little bit of a theater flair to all of this stuff going. Like
Absolutely.
I realized that so many of the things that were creating our comprehension of our worldview, really, our worldview of everything, like shaping our whole world, what we see. A lot of that was fabricated or manipulated in a way that presented all these things that didn't took up a lot of our mind space, mental capacity for things that didn't matter because they weren't really real. Why do we all remember John Benet Ramsey? At the end of the day, like, long story short, cut to the chase, spoiler alert, I don't think that she was a real child. I think she was a simulated victim. I don't think there was actually a child born of the name John Benet Ramsey, which actually her name anagrams to, and for a child found in the basement of her family home, her name anagrams to "enjoy our basement."
Oh my God. And of course, folks, that's just a coincidence. They're always just coincidences. Always.
It's one of those things. When I cognated onto that little factoid, I was like, oh boy, like you guys think you're so clever, like shaking fist at cloud, like.
Yeah, you find a lot of that
guys.
in gematria too. You find those phrases and you're like, oh my God. Like I think Kennedy, speak coincidentally,
There you go.
there's a real good one with that, like shot in head or something like that. It's just like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah,
So-
back into the left is also kidding. Yeah. Or like grassy knoll, and grassy knoll's interesting because it has the word like know, like knowledge in it. Knoll,
yeah.
it's even
can see that.
Knoll, knoll, knowledge. The word knoll is in the word knowledge, which is kind of, well, except minus one L. Well, we can take it if you anyway. But I think it's kind of interesting because like grassy knoll is almost like a forest through the trees. You can't see. It's like grass. There's something about it's almost like clouded vision. Something like grassy knoll.
Yeah,
Is
okay,
kinda
I get
like
behind
cloudy,
that.
but- I mean, it's a stretch. I'm known for stretching. That's something that I do. I like to stretch on that wordplay. But all of these, there's a reason that it's called grassy knoll, and I think it has something to do with the word knowledge in there. And I think it's also something about like our inability to see like clearly and directly.
That sounds about right. Didn't I see you mention somewhere? I think it might have been on your Twitter feed that like, was it sky? The word sky, the etymology of sky is to cloud.
Yes, exactly. The word
Talk about
sky.
inversion, a
I
perfect
know.
inversion.
And how can you have how can you have the thing stem from something within the thing? How can the
Right.
word sky stem from something it belongs or something that belongs to it and within it? It's kind of like the word tree coming from the word leaf. It's like,
Yeah.
or it's like it feels like a chicken egg thing. Like, how can sky mean cloud? And it's just, but yes, but
Unless
what
you
that
go the
means,
other meaning of cloud and the other way to use it.
exactly, which means to distort our vision, which means to I mean, literally to cloud, to create a visually impenetrable barrier that we can't quite see clearly through. Ugh, cloud. And they're contemporary, and they kind of, what are clouds? I like to wonder that too. What is the weather? What is
You
going on?
know, we hear so many different conspiracy theories about that too. It could go one way, it could go another way. I mean, you hear about chemtrails and there's some pretty intense information out there that says like planes like 747s don't produce like contrails like they say they do.
They're
So it's
definitely
like,
different. It's like skywriting. And I mean, there's a reason skywriting was significant back in the day, was because it lingered. That's what made it remarkable. Like that's what separated skywriting from planes. Is
Right.
when growing up, planes didn't leave long trails. Skywriting planes did, And so
Right,
like,
yeah.
but now we have these, what they're trying to tell us are totally normal experiences that are obviously not. They're lingering for very long periods of time. We can see them all over. What is that? Before, I was big into, because you could see them. Obviously, there's something going on. I was big into chemtrail, like the idea of them spraying all of these neurotoxins, manipulating us through the air that we breathe, into the water. I was really into that. But now
Me
I'm
too.
like, hang on, y'all, it could just be skywriting. Like they could just be like skywriting up there. It lingers, and
Could.
it's innocuous. It's nothing. And I know that sounds radical. I mean, it sounds like it's like
Isn't it
what,
weird? Isn't it weird that a more mundane explanation for what we're seeing, at least on the surface, is radical? But I know that's not where you're going with it. And
But
you're
it's
going where
almost
I
like
want to go.
It's almost like I don't know. I feel like there could be a lot of theatrical things that we are presented as bystanders on the ground looking up in the sky. If the sky is to cloud, well, then it makes total sense that they would go up there and like try to manipulate us in some way. So if they want us really scared, thinking that we're always being harmed, thinking that we're getting chemtrails and breathing in all these toxicants, we're probably going to feel scared and probably think we're being poisoned. Maybe we are. I don't know.
That's the thing.
I don't
Both
know.
explanations are bad. You know what I mean? It's like,
I know.
well, not
It's like,
necessarily, but
one is where
one is very physically bad.
One's
Like,
physically bad, one's psychologically. They're both. What I kind of go
feel
back
like,
to this
I feel like you
idea.
can't go either way. It sounds
keep
like the
going
red
back to this
versus
idea.
blue.
Exactly, we get stuck in this, and I love it. Okay, back to Realize Radio, man. I'm really bad.
Yeah,
at getting
that's okay.
something.
That's like I said, it's going to be a wild conversation. It's not going to be some
We
formal
focus
interview.
on these vortexes a lot, these polarities on Realize Radio. So it was actually like me, Rambo. He's another Twitter guy, and Murph,
awesome, too.
he's awesome, and Murph, another Twitter guy. Like 3 Twitter personalities, all of us like friends on Twitter. We were like we created this little gang together on Twitter where we were like exploring our personal truths, which all kind of intertwined into this kind of cohesive collaboration of basically questioning this realm and history as we've been taught and told, and basically everything we've been taught, you know, from all of our systems, all our educational systems, really kind of like, what are we taught? And if we are taught it, that means it's probably manipulated in some way. So what does that mean? Why are we then teaching us? And then, you know, all the things that make we talked earlier about just like the lens, all the things that make our world view, you know, that gets shaped early on. It gets shaped in our very early childhood, and you know, we kind of lose our kid magic. As kids, I feel like we're so intuitive, when we're so in tune with the way that we should be and the way that this world could be and is, you know. And then when we're adults, we just get it worked out of us. We become so easily convinced that we should give all of our resources, and all our resources are time. We should give all of that for paper money that will buy us these things in this realm. And yes, it is you have, if I don't pay my rent, I'm out. Like, it's real in that sense. But also it's like, what if we didn't have these constructs? What if we didn't have these confines? Like, so we talk about big stuff like that on Realize Radio, but we also talk about silly stuff like, you know, which politician is wearing which silicone mask, a CGI style, like, you know, or really old Hollywood like wigs and teeth, and, you know, sometimes we have CGI Biden that we you know, kick around, and sometimes we have like Jim Carrey as Biden that we wonder if that's the version. Sometimes we have like obviously masked Biden, where his mask's coming off on his face, or he does different ear Biden. It's like, who's under there? So we play that game a lot. We like to have like a lighthearted approach to deconstructing this reality as we know it, and so that's Realize Radio. We did season 1. It's on all major platforms, and we're going to do season 2 this summer, but we haven't started recording that yet. We will. We're all just taking a little bit of a break because what you guys do is really hard. What you guys do. So kudos to your podcast, the efforts that you put in, and I mean, any podcaster out there, like, it's a lot of work. I didn't really understand, because as a guest, you just show up and talk and peace out and hope it's good, right. And hope your dog doesn't bark. Hope you don't show up late and your dog doesn't bark early.
That just adds flavor to the episode, you know. But you guys do a great job. You guys do a fantastic job. I love how you guys just go and you're like, "Where's Rambo? Where is he? He'll be here eventually." Or Murph will be here. He's not here yet.
Murph usually is the one who dips out and gets caught in some sort of time vortex of his own creation, and then comes back in magnificently. Yeah, that's actually, it's so funny because that's why we're on sort of a break right now, because Murph's just like swirling and whirling, and he's like, "I'll land in July," and we're like, "Good, okay, that sounds great. That's probably when we'll start the podcast." It's like, it's perfect timing. It's amazing. So yeah.
And you guys set it up nicely where, like, I think you announced right on the first episode that you were going to do an 8-part season, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, mostly because we didn't know what we were doing, and I was on the hook for all of it because I was the only one with the equipment. I was the only one with the subscription. I was the only one who had the, I guess, kind of like gall to think like, yes, I can take this on, y'all.
Yes.
And I was like, but I can't do this indefinitely. Like, I can't make this a thing. There's no way I can go into this with a extreme wind in my sails if I'm thinking about having to do this forever. Like, if I give myself a set number that I feel comfortable with, like 8 just was a perfect number for me. I love the number 8. It is a very powerful number. I mean, it's a sign of infinity. Like, the 8 itself it's symbolic. I don't know. There was something about it that felt complete. I was like, let's do 8. And then we'll stop, and then we'll start it back up, and we'll do another 8, and we'll do them in 8-episode chunks. And then in between that, we could take like a month off, 2 months. I think we've taken a couple months off, and
that's great.
Anyway,
well, you guys have covered quite a bit on that show, and so for my listeners, this is probably going to be the weirdest stuff I've talked about so far. But honestly,
let's get it in.
Dude, I haven't really, dear audience members, I haven't really given a lot of myself on this show anyway. I've kind of just been doing more formal interviews as much as I can. But listening to you guys, I'm like, I can't do a formal interview about this stuff. This has to be flying out of our heads, kind of. I mean, I reduced 8 pages of notes down to like 3 or 4. We can look and cover some of it, but it's all right here because this is the stuff.
I want to play that.
Let's play it. Because I have some bullet points. I have some legit questions. I have,
Yeah. Take a spin.
oh, let's see. Oh, a lot of it is stuff that I heard you guys talk about. I'm like, ooh, see, now I was already
Oh,
thinking
cool. You're
about
taking
that
notes
back
on
in
the
the
realized
day.
stuff. Cool.
Well, it's just because let me give you a little backstory myself. I was a real psychonaut back in my early 20s. I was all into acid and mushrooms and DMT and all that stuff.
Ooh.
It's
To
a
the
whole
moon.
world, it's a whole thing. And that's kind of what
I've never
really
done a
woke me
psychedelic,
up.
but I'm gonna do one this weekend. By the way, weird timing. Anyway,
No shit. I have something to talk to. Yeah. Okay. So
sidebar.
awesome. That was one of my questions. I didn't even know how to broach it. Like, is she
Never
and
done a
are
psychedelic.
all three
Never
of these
once.
people coming up with this stuff without that experience? Because everything you guys talk about now, it's not specifically everything. I've never looked into John Bonet, but what you've shown me has been pretty intense.
Yeah.
But the main themes that you guys go into, not a lot of people, I can't talk to a lot of people about. I have a few friends that are really in tune with it. It's mostly from my psychedelic experiences and theirs, and our mutual discovery of a the closest relation we could find was in Eastern mysticism for the most part. And it's
Oh, I
interesting
really
when
jive
we,
with. Yes. Okay.
well,
Yeah.
so the thing is like, and not only you guys, but myself included, like I'm always thinking about these different theatrical elements, and conspiracy theorists have a million different ways to look at the Bible, the Sumerians, all the ancient aliens versus the astrotheology that flies in the face of all these different theories go everywhere. But what is really going on is clearly a massive delusion or a massive deception. And what's fascinating to me about psychedelics, which maybe you'll see, maybe you won't, it's going to be colored by you because it's really just you. It's really just you. I was running my ego was running a conspiracy on my higher self my whole life. Hidden messages, symbolism everywhere. So I felt like I was having the most terrifying, mind-blowing intervention with myself. So, I mean, not to go too deep into my story, but just to give you a little bit of background into the weirdness that I did experience. And I have found Eastern mysticism is very close sometimes to what you guys are talking about, because when you think about the word Maya as illusion in Buddhism,
I know.
the Mayans, I mean, how about that? The
I
Buddhists,
know.
how about that? Take that term and that philosophy very seriously. And I think probably over there, in places where that's studied more than anywhere else, there's probably people there that are on different levels of that understanding where they're taking it one way, but it's still very materialistic, or they're on the entire other end of the spectrum and they're floating 3 inches off the ground. I don't know, but you know what I mean? Like,
Do you think levitation could be possible if you have that type of alignment within your body or something? I
think
wonder.
that's,
I mean, I'm not there. I'm certainly
I'm not there either.
I'm not
And
there.
I also think that's because
This
I
ATC of
drag
this
my, right.
Pilsner,
Yeah.
this Texas
And
Pilsner.
this, and yeah. Right.
Yeah, getting high, but not levitating, if you know what I mean.
Right.
If you
Exactly. Well, see, that's the thing.
catch
I
me
mean, you
drift.
have those threads that go down. Oh, it was all just metaphor. It's all just metaphor. But then you
What
have
if?
equally very interesting researchers talking about how it's probably not just metaphor about Jesus walking, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
And sound vibration can like levitate sand. You know, you can like,
Exactly.
I know, there's all
It's
these,
just
I
unreal
mean,
to us
yeah.
right now in this technocratic world that apparently everyone thinks we're moving towards. We've been in it quite a while.
Right.
We're just programmed to it, correct?
Right. The slow drip of technology. So
Yeah.
I think the slow drip of technology is so preordained in a way that, I mean, this technology has always existed. What we think about it as being new, it's just new to us, and it's just being rolled out at certain times. And certain technologies come out so that we become dependent on certain things and lose certain things about ourselves, I mean,
Absolutely.
these smartphones, good Lord, we can't remember now a phone number to save our life because our phones do that. We set our alarm, or we're so much more dependent on, I feel like, alarm, like we need our devices now to tell us when and what and where and how and why to do the things that we used to be very capable of doing by ourselves, without a device, without a facilitator. And now if you lose your phone, you're like, oh, my arm's gone. It's like my
Right.
hand, my other hand. Yeah, it feels like you've lost like a very significant part of yourself. Ugh, these devices. I
Yeah.
used to be just fine without a phone, without a smartphone. Back in
All
the
of
day.
us did.
Freedom.
All of
We
us
all
did.
did.
And we're lucky because we're clearly in that bracket where we grew up without it and now we grew up with it, where my son and so many people before him just have only known that. It's so weird. We have our
Yeah.
feet in one world and another world, it seems, at least. I don't know, maybe,
I feel very
perhaps.
fortunate to have had a pre-internet childhood. Yeah,
Yeah, I
very
really am too.
fortunate. Very
you
fortunate.
know um let's see what else we should get into here. Oh, this is a fun one. I remember you guys going, they always tell us the truth. They always tell us the truth. And there's a lot of angles to that. Have you ever heard of revelation of the method?
Yes, and when I say they always tell us the truth, that's a big part of what I think I'm kind of gleaning from within myself, because I do feel like everything that is a major psychological trauma, a shared experience within this realm, I have a very strong inclination that a lot, if not all, of these experiences are manufactured in a way to extract the most emotional psychic energy, the most eyeballs, attention, focused human energy, and really just get us kind of like Plato's cave, where the prisoners were chained in one direction, and they could only see the shadows on the wall. And if they were just unchained, they could actually turn and see that the light source behind them, that it was just like puppets, that someone was just so what they saw on the wall was not a true representation of what reality was. It was actually being operated by the deceiver and the light source behind.
Right.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Dog in the background.
Hey, he's on the
He doesn't
podcast
like this
too.
Lucifer talk. He's like, Plato's cave again, Mom. You always talk about that.
Oh, scary Lucifer too. Yeah.
But I do think, they always tell us the truth. I think that they tell us the truth with how they show us the whole picture, but the vantage point, the framing is such that we only see it through a very specific narrow lens, and that is the takeaway. We get the takeaway from a very narrow framing, where if we were able to just pull back, step back, we would actually see that there was all these like coincidental machinations that are happening within any given thing. If we were that seem coincidental, and it's like, oh, that's weird. If we were able to step back, we would see that like, oh, everything is so organized and connected, because it's designed that way. And because everything is designed with this pattern and design, with dynamic symmetry, everything is patterned in a way that the symmetrical element is very interesting, and because I think that shows us that all of this is pre-written and preordained, and if you could just see it, then you can see the truth. And one of those is talking back to JFK. So the route that JFK, the assassination route, Dealey Plaza, and the street that he was specifically on, there's 3 streets that come together in a very distinct trident pattern. It's like 2 streets bowing out like a bell on one side, and then a very narrow single street on in the middle, and it's like a trident. It creates like a like we know of a trident from the sea with what's
Poseidon.
Poseidon. That's right.
Yes.
Poseidon's trident. And what I found very significant is on the World Trade Center, the original towers, not the new Trade Center, but the Twin Towers, the architectural detailing at the very bottom, as it's above the lobby entrance, but as it's going into skyscraper mode, it is a very distinct trident pattern. And not just any trident pattern, but if you overlaid it on the JFK route, it's the same dimensions, the dimensionality. It's not just any trident pattern. It is the JFK route trident that is on the World Trade Center architectural, like come on, like that is just that's a tether. When I see these things, I like to visualize that these are the same thread just on different parts of a much larger like tapestry. But it's all, if you were to unweave it or pull it, it may come all around, loop all around from all different directions and swirl and whirl, and seem to come out of this place and that, but it's all the same thread, and it's all, I don't know. And these things connect, yeah.
That's what, is everything a conspiracy theory? Yes, but not as it seems. I don't know. It really does. Let's get into it. Everything, quote unquote, is fake, right? But it's not. It's
real.
not. It's so real. And what's curious to me,
I think the word should be false. I think fake
false is good. And
false is better. False is better than fake. Let's just go ahead and say that everything is fake is a weird punchline. It's an incomplete punchline, or it's a really shallow encapsulation of what we explore.
yes, and it's being kind of stolen away by people that don't understand what you're saying.
No, and then they say
and I'm not saying.
I'm like, that's not what we're after.
And I'm not even talking about, because I've seen a number of people that I really respect and like argue with you guys. I'm like, oh, come on, this sucks. I don't. It's unfortunate because we're all coming at this stuff from very different angles. I'm a psychedelic guy, so like that's where I start, and the ancient symbolism and what does it all mean. But other people are coming from the political angles that if I didn't have those people saying those things and showing those documents, it's like, oh, okay. So I'm seeing more of this pattern that links up to all this weird deception information that was in my head already. It seems like, you guys have said we're kind of programmed with this stuff, and it does feel like something's already in there. But that's what leads me to wonder. And so this is what I wanted to get to with the whole everything's fake thing, is kind of being taken away by people who are seeing it in the wrong light. And I think I actually mentioned that on one of our Twitter threads, that it can be taken the wrong way. It can definitely be run with by minds that aren't nurtured enough in the right way, and don't hear enough of this stuff. Because honestly, I've heard you guys talk about more light and love and connection and the importance of what is real than anything else on Realize Radio across 8 episodes and most of your Twitter feeds.
Too. I think we're like in general really positive.
Absolutely.
And whenever we do talk about things being fake, we are really trying to explore what that would mean from a bigger picture and what they're trying to do. If fake, then how do we counteract this? Like, is it and are we able to experience a lightning effect, a levity, an almost like releasing of, if a certain big bad wolf, if a certain boogeyman or a certain trauma that we thought we experienced, that we find out was kind of just a manipulation, not kind of, but an actual manipulation of light and truth. Well, then it feels I feel lighter. I feel personally, I'm talking about like levitating 3 inches off the ground. I'm almost there. I'm getting there.
There you go.
I do feel a lightening effect from exploring things from an angle of, maybe it didn't happen the way they told us. So yes, I agree. Conspiracy, yes.
We're all on to something.
We're on to something, because the conspiracy is what they told us ain't the truth. That's for dang sure.
Yeah.
But in a way,
that's not true.
they sometimes they do, but we just can't see it. We just can't see it because the delivery, it's like they prism it. Like they tell us the truth, but they prism the delivery so that the truth goes pew and like misses, and we get caught on all this other light. Like, and whoever's in charge of the light is also really in charge of the severity and depth of the shadows.
I think it's all of us. I think that's what's going on. We are
actually the real owner operators of the true light.
Yeah, and I think I heard you once say there ain't no big boss at the top, and you were kind of talking about these crazier metaphysical ideas where there ain't no boss. And I think this
totally
we are the boss. And I know that unfortunately we're met with a lot of division in this community. a lot, not even just from this angle, from so many different angles where I can't talk about ancient symbolism without it being satanic or evil. So I don't know how to get around that angle where I'm sure I could talk about it here, because, from that perspective that you're taking, where you have to superimpose this bird's eye view on the whole picture. And if you do that, it kind of allows you to play with it. And if you're not offended or afraid to play with it, it's just hypothetical. It's just a thought experiment, right? It seems like so many people won't even play with it. And when you do play with it, it uncovers quite a bit. And it seems like it kind of folds right back in on the self over and over again. Like, what are we getting out of this? And what am I learning out of this? And no matter what the experience is. And the funny thing is, I'm sorry to ramble, but
No, it's so interesting. I'm glad you're bringing this up. It's so interesting.
the Eastern mysticism stuff, a lot of Westerners seem to, and this is not new. This is, since Ram Dass headed off to India and came back and kind of brought all those ideas into the culture. A lot of Westerners get really turned off and they slip into that nihilism that I was talking to you about on Twitter, about how people can slip there if they're not shepherded the right way, and people giving good information to ease that fear. It's like, no, it's okay. You know what I mean? Am I onto something there?
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
I think you're absolutely onto something, and I love that I love that you brought up the symbols as kind of your intro into discussing this and how the symbology throughout time. I mean, just knowing when you look back at Eastern mysticism, knowing that what we understand as the Nazi symbol,
Yeah,
once you can comprehend that that symbol existed long, it was pattern was pre in what we understand as history, and I'm putting history in air quotes,
absolutely. Just his story.
but the story goes that long before this symbol was a Nazi symbol, it was used in Buddhist cultures for thousands of years. It doesn't mean Hail Hitler or any, we see it as a swastika and think really incredibly negative things all associated with the symbol. But the story goes, the symbol actually means inner divinity. It actually means something that is quite incredibly powerful and positive, is that we are our own divine source. We are inside of us. And you talked about light. You mentioned that we are the light. I believe that. I believe that within each of us is a shining light, an inner light.
Or a fragment of it.
Yeah, and we're all kind of
Or
sharing.
fractal, more like a fractal. That's probably better.
This fractal nature of the realm, and that goes. I mean, that speaks to like the patterns. The patterns just express themselves all over, and
Yeah. I mean, all the way back to 5000 BC and on, and further into Göbekli Tepe at 10,000 BC, and all this new history that's being uncovered where everything's getting older and older and older.
They always move the football. They always move the goalposts.
They do, but and there's good guys in there too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good guys in our community that are proving those points. I don't think our end goal is to go, yeah, see, we're way older. Our point is, what's going on here? Why is this? Why is history exempt
about the
from
wrong things?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we're not.
Because
I
we're
mean,
arguing like, I think
we
you're
have to
wrong
get
about
there.
this portion of history when we should be like, y'all,
Take a step back.
all history is like bunk.
Look at the repetition.
I think Henry Ford, his story goes that Henry Ford said something along the lines of all history is bunk. All of it.
I think you're right.
All just,
I think someone did, and he's not the only one.
Not the only one. Yeah. And there's also a passage in 1984, which we in the truth community, many people herald as kind of a proclamation of a foretelling of things to come. And in many ways, yeah, but it's also kind of just like predictive, it's just programming us to always think that yes, we are beholden to Big Brother. I think it's kind of a defeatist trope. If we buy into it, then we believe that Big Brother will eventually always have the power.
And maybe that's the point.
I think that is the point. I do, but I think it's either in '84 itself or it's Wells, or just a quote attributed to him, and it says, "He who controls the present controls the past, and he who controls the past controls the future.
I'm not
So
sure if
basically,
that was in.
if you're in power now, you write the book. So you say what happened then. You say if you're in power now, if you control the present, then you have the capacity for saying this happened in the past. Wink, wink. Probably didn't, but you can write it in whatever way is going to benefit the current state. And however you influence, and when I say benefit, that's also like probably not for our benefit, but more of like passing along of things. And but whoever controls that current state, whoever you designed the past influences the present, and the present dictates what happens in the future. So yeah, if you can if you can own the present and control and manipulate the past, you can dictate what will happen in the future. Because we have been taught and programmed these stories of a past that probably didn't exist in real life, but only exists to put us on train. They say if we don't learn history, we're doomed to repeat it. Mm-hmm. But the opposite is probably true. We do repeat history because we are taught it. So maybe if we weren't taught all of that, it's just like,
So, yes. Yeah. Yes. But at the same time, I think we're learning from history right now. For real, though.
I do too.
Perhaps.
I mean, yes.
You know what I mean?
Showing itself. The fractal nature of this is showing itself.
That's what I'm thinking. It does feel like it's all falling apart. So like over the past 4 or 5 years, when people have been like, oh my God, it's all coming apart. The house of cards is falling. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, it's all going to come out about the pedophiles and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like,
I was about to say,
I was talking about
I was really into
all
that
of physical reality. I wasn't talking about the political bullshit. This whole paradigm is falling apart. Like, that's what I'm seeing. I don't know about you.
You were way earlier than me, to be honest, because when all of that was going on, I would say 2000, the 2016 through, I mean, I really didn't have what I believe to be like this new lens until 2020. So I was caught down. I was caught on all sorts of conspiracies with.
Oh, me too. I
loved all that. Oh boy. Yeah. And I really believed, truly, I believed that, we were just, we had been, what had been revealed to us was the truth, and that if only it could be recognized by the masses, then we would all be free. We would all be like, if only, then we would, the justice, the savior element would be there, the justice would be had, the finality would be experienced, and that was such a, I think it's a when we talk about everything is fake, it's real. The whole world, the universe of this, all these rabbit holes, they're real, and they in the whole Q. I would consider myself an observer of the Q phenomena, because it really is. But I do believe that there's like needle in a haystack situations. I still look at some Q drops as like major revelations of the one about like one day they will not be able to walk through the streets. That one, that was kind of one of the most famous ones, and it was a nod to they will be persecuted and hung in the middle of whatever. They can't walk because they'll be hung or something. They'll be taken out. But what if it really meant they can't walk in the streets because they're just puppets? They're not real. Like I like to explore politics as theater, and like what if like a lot of these entities that we believe to be our all powerful mighty beings, what if they're just like characters, and they're not like, yeah, one day they really can't walk in the streets because they don't really operate like that. We just see them through our screens,
Yeah, it's a tough one between the because I've heard you guys go both ways with like the CGI or the masks, and this and that, because it could be both. It could be
in
and
person.
this may not happen all the time either, because they got to throw in real people every now, like with every conspiracy. This is what we learned. Like maybe conspiracy theories on the surface level were our training for, because the concepts remain the same, it seems, where we still have to follow these rules. Like, okay, so maybe they have to still throw in a lot of truth, mixed in with the bullshit and all that, I don't know. Because I'm totally also open to the fact that this physical realm is very flimsy. I mean,
Yeah,
even
what's
quantum
going on
physics
here?
is saying that.
What's
I mean,
going on here?
even mainstream science at the fringes is saying it. So it's like, I don't even know where to look because some
I
of that
do.
seems real.
I do think we influence this realm. I think we are magical creatures in a magical energetic creatures in a magical energetic space. This realm is influenced by us. I think more so in if we understood our capabilities. I think more so that the ability for us to influence this realm is much more powerful and greater than what the realm has power over us. It's just that we don't know it. We don't know it. We don't know what powerful manifestors we are. Instead, we're just living. We're just like we're playing this game called life, and we are caught in the spell, the dream spell that's been created for us. But we're not like really, I think, manifesting in a way that we kind of understand that we can influence truly this realm through our energy, our like, you know, how the idea of waking up on the wrong side of the bed. If you wake up on the wrong side of the bed in the morning, your whole day is going to be shit.
Right.
It just is. Every interaction that you have is going to be colored by your poor energy input. Like in this realm, I feel like the realm is a blind judge, and it just gives us what we present to it because that's what it deems that we find important. And so if we traffic in negative energy, the realm's going to go like, oh yeah, you really like that. Here's more of that.
Yes.
And if you live if you live in positive, good and true life, abundance is going to that is also going to flow back in abundance. And I think that you know, it's complex and so simple.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, it does seem so complex until you see it, and then it's very simple. It almost feels like there was something hiding right here. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this whole time, real. Oh, it's so obvious. And
That's
so
how I felt
that's,
with Enjoy Our
oh,
Basement with John Bonet. I was like,
dude,
really? Because the
you're gonna
Enneagram
have,
existed the whole time. I just never saw
yeah.
it, you know? Like, it really was. It was the whole
And
time.
you know, where did you learn about anagrams? Because I learned about them from Dan
Twitter.
Brown,
Oh,
and Da
yes,
Vinci
yes. You know,
Code.
I actually loved the Da Vinci Code, and I read a
Me
lot of his
too.
books. I read a
Loved
lot.
all of it. Oh yeah,
I really
Deception something.
Deception Code. Yeah,
That was
Deception.
great. That
That
was
was great.
great.
And it was
Was
very sci-fi. It was kind
the
of talking about a lot of the stuff that's happening right now with these hacks. You know, there
I
and
didn't think
or
about
no, there
that.
was a.
Oh
Was that the
wow.
real techie one with the?
Yes, it was. No, you're
Yeah, yeah.
totally right. But like I only focused on his other books when it came to the stuff. But clearly,
I feel like that's
yeah,
like, you know, talk about revelation of the whatever. I feel like they imprint some of these things in our early psyche, and it's not just movie. We see it in movies now, where it's like in what was it, Back to the Future? They had all this like 9/11 symbolism in it. If you
yeah,
really want to geek
it's
out on that
there.
stuff, it's
It's
there.
definitely
It's
there.
totally
Yeah.
there.
It's
And
everywhere in Hollywood. Yeah.
it's everywhere. Back to the fractal nature.
Right.
It's like a Russian stacking doll is kind of a, you know.
That's in my notes
Oh,
because you guys
cool,
talked about the
cool, yeah.
Russian dolls, and the Russian dolls have been close to my heart for a long time. I've
Really?
heard this concept talked about in many different ways from many different people coming from different backgrounds. You know, more scientific background, you might hear someone say scale invariance. And it's a very
Oh,
interesting way of putting the same thing. This Russian doll
scale
thing is one of
invariant.
the oldest stories that we have because it's as above, so below. It's just, it's people think heaven and earth, as above, so below. They don't see all the
They don't see it as a
millions of
stacking.
levels. And what I also wanted to,
Oh,
if there's,
mandalas are like levels of the realm.
yeah,
Mandalas, and like, and then that goes back. I think mandala effect is like a weird inversion of the idea, the concept of this mandala.
oh yeah,
Like,
yeah. Actually, you're kind of right because that's like, I'll have to look into that more. Hmm.
because the word Mandela, aside from it being Mandela effect, which is
Nelson,
supposedly
yeah.
Nelson Mandela, but the word
Right.
Mandela itself actually means these labyrinth-like realms that we have to ascend through in this journey of life, like in this, like, and as we ascend, personally, back to, everything kind of being something that's happening within us, as we ascend personally and journey personally, like we can go into higher and higher mandalas or realms. Anyway, and then the idea of Mandela effect is the word's the same, but it's supposed to be, Nelson Mandela, which is kind of interesting because it actually connects to like kind of the same concept of these variation of realm. Some people have slipped into another timeline, another version, another realm. Some people, it's kind of strange. And
I've heard a DMT story recently where someone and his friend did DMT on the studio couch, and he had this whole crazy experience, and part of it was worrying about getting back to his reality because he was in the multiverse. And when he came back, it took him like 10-15 minutes to recover and get a drink of water, but he realized that where him and his friend were sitting was the living room, not the studio anymore. Yeah, it's
they had
or he did it by himself while his friend like kind of watched him and took care of him. And maybe he came back to maybe a place just slightly to the left or the right
about it, and it happened.
And
Whoopsie.
what do we all, and that's, think about all the spirituality that's talked about on Instagram constantly. We create our own bad patterns. It's so let's go back to these Russian dolls, because another way to describe the Russian doll is a spiral. And you guys love spirals.
Love it.
Man, because the spiral is that greater realm, right? Every time you swoop around to the same damn circle
or spiral down, like
bam.
Yeah.
And Tool's one of my favorite bands. They always said spiral out, keep going. And that drove me, man, because of psychedelics, because my experiences, suddenly I could see a grid everywhere, man. I could see
the grid.
lines, and it was all spiraling and swirling and perfect.
I've never done
and I
psychedelics, but when I was a kid,
am mind blown.
I saw the grid as a kid.
That's amazing.
Saw the grid. I haven't been able to see the grid as an adult.
I haven't done psychs in a long time, and I don't see it anymore either.
But they say that all of the psychedelics that we could ingest from even the synthetics or the natural to synthetic, it's basically replicating something that already exists, a process that already exists within our brain. Like
we have
DMT.
receptors. We have receptors.
Right. We have
for
cannabinoid
DMT.
receptors. We've got the capacity to make like a DMT LSD trip for our own damn selves. And I wonder if that's why some kiddos have imaginary friends, because they're just got like a natural slow drip of a hallucinogen. And also, to a fresh brain, oxygen itself is a hallucinogenic.
Yes. Nice.
Oxygen.
Yep.
I think
Fight Club taught me that in like 1999, but we just glossed right over it because, man, Tyler Durden.
Yeah, I get pretty distracted if Brad Pitt was.
Dude, I am.
Yeah, Oxa what? Brad?
Dude, you know what was great? Fight Club had a website back then where you could buy the clothes that Tyler Durden wore, right? And as soon as you clicked on it, because yes, I was that asshat that clicked on it.
Oh, that's cool. This is like
totally,
immersive.
dude. No, it totally shamed you for being a materialistic sheep, and it was amazing.
Tyler Durden would do that. That's such a Tyler Durden thing to do.
Right.
That's so Tyler. That's funny.
And it's funny when we're going all over the place, but that's literally what I was hoping for. So this is a great success so far.
Success. Same. I like these. These are my favorite.
Yeah,
this is what
man.
we do in real life. We chat.
This is the best. This is how I flow better than anything else. I could sit here all stiff and try to do the thing, but that just doesn't work all the time.
If we lose sense of time, that's what I've learned. If I lose sense of time chatting, like even when we're recording, you realize, and I'm trying to remember all these back end things I have to be doing about editing and da da da. But if I can lose sense of time when I'm chatting with the guys, I feel pretty confident that if you're listening, you can lose sense of time too.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's
and
really.
The flow state is felt. I think it can be a show. Talk about a spiral. We can all spiral in, spiral out to this flow state together.
Absolutely.
And then you do lose time. I think that flow state is one of the times that the human cognition of time is interrupted. Is slowed in a way that you can. You look up and it's like 5 hours later. You're like, what? Huh? You're in a different studio. You're in the living room. You're like, huh?
Oh
Studio? No, I'm
man.
kidding. That was DMT, not flow state.
Like even so, like without even having the experience, I'm sure you've been pretty fascinated by them for a long time, right?
I have been, but I made a rule for myself that I would only do a psychedelic. I would never seek it. I would never seek out a psychedelic, and I would only do it if it presented itself as a gift to me in my universe
Beautiful.
naturally.
That's beautiful.
And guess what? It sure has. And I'm having this. I'm for the first time ever. It sounds so silly, but I'm doing like a little local meetup for human vibration people in my city. Like if you're close by, like on this Saturday 6/26 in my city in Dallas, I'm
Nice.
gonna have a little meetup, and I'm not doing it at the thing, but the universe has presented this whole scenario around this where I will be able, should I choose to go on a guided trip with someone that I feel very close with, and have it, like it's just like bestowed upon me, like the whole experience, and it's during this time or it's after this like meetup, but I'm not going to be tripping during the meetup. That'd be so wild. But my first trip,
I would urge you not to.
yeah, definitely not. No way. But I just think it's like coinciding with this thing that I had, like a gift that I gave myself to like take human vibration off of digital and put it into the world, like the real, like IRL, in this space that I really like. This, I'm in a new space, I'm in a new place, and I want to, like, there's this park that I go to a lot, and it's happening at the park, and it's like I feel this good energy in these spaces, and it's like, yeah, let's have some local folks come together. We'll sit on blankets and vibe in the park for an hour,
Mhm.
and then
That's great.
I'm gonna go and do some mushrooms.
Oh,
So
awesome.
so
Awesome
I'm doing
choice.
mushrooms, and I am glad that it's that, because I don't think that I would be ready to take like an acid based or like some sort of. I think that mushrooms are probably, if I'm as a newbie, as a brand newbie, I think mushrooms are exactly the speed that I need to go at. So
They are. They are. They're a very natural thing. It's weird because in the Amazon, when they were able to put together DMT, they it's like a root of one plant and like the leaves of another, right? And somehow out of like 10 million species of plants, these tribal folk were able to figure that out, right? To make it
Right.
orally active. They just say the plants told them, right? So similar to what you're saying about this gift situation, where I had a friend just out of nowhere a while back say, do you want DMT? You've been
Oh
talking
wow.
about DMT. I'm like, I'm not buying any of that right now. It's like, oh no, it's free because the guy I get it from says that he is not allowed to sell it anymore because the gods told him to stop.
Well, that's a nice
So it's
twist
like,
of fate. Thanks,
well, how about
consciousness.
that? So it's like,
One man's DMT drink is
yeah,
another man's treasure. Yeah.
exactly. So, well, no, the gods told him to stop selling it because
Yeah,
it
so he
should be
gave you his
given as a
bounty.
gift. Yes, yeah, it's
No,
always as a gift.
exactly. It became your treasure, that's for sure.
So, dude, we could get into a lot of things. I don't know how much time you have, but
How
I
long have
mean,
we been? I honestly lost all
we
track of
lost time. It's been
How-
exactly an hour, because you signed on at 9:33 my time, 33, and now it's
Of
33
course
again.
she did. Everyone in the audience that thinks I'm some sort of CIA operative or something, be like, yeah,
That's great.
that sounds about right. Human
Here's the problem. Tell me what you think of
whatever.
this.
Uh-huh.
When I was younger and I was in bands and stuff like that, I'm a big metalhead.
Uh-huh. You seem like it. Yeah, the way that you're referencing to and everything. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I would totally be making music videos with all sorts of that, all kinds of symbolism and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And I, as this dumb young metalhead, loving all the psychedelic references to the ancient world and all this stuff, would be considered evil and satanic by half the people in this community.
Yeah.
That's really frustrating.
When
So
it
I'm
was
wondering,
just like yeah.
what do you guys think of, like, how do you think this goes forward with how divisive the topic is, of everything's
Everything's
kind of
fake.
false or
Everything's
fake or
false.
whatever? I mean, how do you think this is going to turn out months down the road? Do you think more people are going to climb onto it, or you think it's going to
I think
people are
it's
going to fade away from it?
I have definitely when I had about a year and a half of no adversarial energy. you know, like from, I would say 2020, January 2020 is when I first really just splashed in. And it hasn't been until recently that I feel like, you know, it was really when we started our Patreon, when we started asking people to pay for our knowledge, quote unquote, which is how it's viewed. We still have a free show. We are still going to continue the free show, but in between, we do have a Patreon where we chat. We have a lot of stuff on it. You know, that began a lot of commentary about what we were doing. Before it was just, you know, we had cuckoo ideas and we were harmless. And, you know, it was like, yeah, there was no, there was kind of some eye rolling. I think there was probably a lot of eye rolling, but I don't think that there was any intentionality questioning in this way of like, oh, they're, because X, then Y. And once we started the Patreon, we gave a big X. We gave a big X that we never had before. We never had like this, because it was just like for like a year and a half, we were just like literally just tweeting all the time, me, Rambo, and Murph, just like going nuts on Twitter all the time. And then we started the free podcast. And then we started a Patreon just to see and like play around. And we do like some multimedia stuff on there, which we can't do on a regular podcast. So, or we could, but anyway, it's different.
Yeah, you just get kicked off.
Whatever,
Yeah.
exactly. And so we did some video stuff too. You know, I don't know, but when we started that, I definitely, and also in true transparency, I was a lone wolf. I was a lone wolf for a long time, and then I started making alliances for as however you want to. And I think anybody that's listening knows what I'm talking about. And I've settled into what I feel like is I picked people that I really liked and that I wanted to be talking to and communicating with and doing and making stuff with and doing things with. And I feel like in a way, whenever you do that, you always open yourself up for something. You always, you know, because when you're alone, you can just defend yourself and it's just like all on you or whatever. But sometimes when you're in a group, it's like you could be seen as being a conspiratorial element of some sort or measure, but by the sheer element that you're now in a group setting. And I've kind of noticed that because before when I was just alone, I was just like, people didn't like what I was saying. Nobody questioned me in that way. But now now I do feel it. So I don't know how to answer that other than I feel like I am really still trying to work that out for myself. I'm still trying to
Where it's going.
where we're gonna do this. But I think all in all, you know, I actually don't even like that I just spent a couple of minutes talking about this adversarial element of it, because I would say 99.99999% of my whole experience has been nothing but positivity and I feel uplifted. I feel great. I feel uplifted. My life is human vibration has actually helped me, my IRL person, my in real life. I actually feel way more connected to, like, I've really allowed myself to I've taught myself lessons, like this exploration of what is important and what is real, talking about what everything's fake. I feel like I focus on what's real and what makes real change in this world, and what makes real change in your life, and what makes real change in this matrix as we know it, you know, if you're the influencer, if you're Ready Player One, get to moving, and here's what to do. And so I feel like that's what we talk about the majority. And I've learned so many things through this. When I tell myself to not fear, is when human vibration is saying, don't fear this, don't fear that, just move move through this realm, render as you go, and do it with pure intentionality and positivity, and, you know, but yet in my real life, I'm, you know, I was like scared to do all sorts of things, but then I was like, wait a second, human vibration would tell me, live your truth. And I actually did make huge swings, big changes in my life, so much so that I now live in a different place. My previous, what I would consider like all of the things that kind of make all your statuses have been altered, and it was through purposeful decision making that I feel like was 100% a result of what I'm doing through human vibration, because I gave myself the confidence by saying, like, it's okay to think these things. And not only is it okay to think these things, but like, you really do need to be living in your own truth, because that is what you're literally telling everybody is that is going to make a big difference in their life if they live their own truth. You got to do that too, sister, you know? So I did. And it worked. It worked. Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's so good. I'm glad that you guys are going to be doing a season 2 and everything.
Season
That's
2 starting
awesome.
in July. We all were kind of in this transitional state. It's so interesting. So we were all like, we're able to take this time off between season 1 and what will be season 2, like in this summer eventually. And we're all kind of like resettling into certain things. It was so perfect. The timing was just awesome. I don't know.
That's how I feel too. I totally get that vibe, man. Like as soon as I started this thing, just everything, as soon as I started living in my own truth and just
Bingo.
pouring this crap out of my head, not worrying about anything. It feels great. It feels liberating, you know? So I won't keep you too much longer, but I do have one more question for you.
Yes, sir.
And let's see, how do I word this? Because I word this very specifically on here. Here we go. I talk a lot about this episode to episode, really. I'm curious what your thoughts are. The idea that for everything natural, real, and true, there is always a mimicry laid out alongside it. It looks and feels very similar to that natural truth thing, but it's devoid of any true transformative meaning. And it works to distract us from the natural, real, and true experience. It's that typical line of keeping us at low vibration, right? With these ideas that you talk about, this external arena given to us being an illusion for the most part, let's say, it almost
Can
perfectly.
you read that first part again real quick?
Sure.
Like the very first sentence, because that
Okay.
cuts so deep.
This idea that for everything natural, real, and true, there is always a mimicry laid out alongside it.
Mimicry. Okay.
So
Yes.
this external arena is given to us, and it's kind of like an illusion. It almost perfectly puts all the other conspiracy theories that everyone likes to discuss into that mimicry box, as if to say, sure, they'll spend all this time on JFK or the moon landing, or the vaccine, or even interdimensional beings, perhaps, as long as they're still buying into all the parts of the illusion itself.
Wow.
So doesn't it really matter on what level they're exposing it? It's like, I'm wondering, and this is going to be way out there, but actually, you know what? I posed this to you a few months ago, back when I first shot you a message and said, hey, what's going on? What I was saying about how the psychedelic experience for me alone made me feel like I had been running a conspiracy on myself this whole time. This as above, so below feeling that's just been driving a lot of my questioning. It feels like the best way to judge society is the same way you would judge an individual. The process it goes through, it's literally the microcosm of the macrocosm. So what if, right? And we always, this community loves to talk about collective consciousness and all that.
Right.
What about the collective ego? So what if,
yes, sir.
What if we're already in the realm of things are fake. We're already okay with the CGI and the fake masks. What if it's all just this oneness, this weird, because, have you recently heard that, some conspiracy theorists like to now say that the unity and the oneness is all the psyop. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. I experienced that in here before I heard any of this shit that they're selling. So how do I make ends meet there? You know what I mean? So what I'm proposing is that on the weirdest level, you want to call me a psyop, go right ahead. It's a collective consciousness of some kind. And what if they're trying to wake us up because they are just more of us and they've just been doing it a lot longer? I'm trying desperately to put a positive spin on this whole experience we're going through. And that one kind of seems to be the linchpin.
I feel that deeply. I feel that this is a place to learn lessons. If we, and I feel like it's always been this kind of silly. We talk about revelation of the method and truth in plain sight. Has it always been like this? I think it's been pretty clear, but you know, just like with generations of hardware and software, each generation gets more astute and more clear and more efficient and more advanced. And I feel like we as human beings, generation to generation, we're literally called gens, you know, just like iPhone 6, iPhone 7, you know, we're the next gen. We're the
Holy
next
crap.
gen. You know, and I feel like our cognitive abilities, rendering abilities, intellectual capabilities get a little bit better each time. And maybe only now, and maybe because of our exposure, we talked about this earlier, but maybe because of the way that we were in both worlds of pre-internet, pre-computer, pre-this, pre-that, more like analog, the last of the analog state, and then into this transitional state into this like wired world. There's a vantage point that we have I think it's really significant. I think it's interesting. I think that we're kind of meant to see, and I think it's a vantage point that our parents just didn't have. They didn't have a vocabulary for this, you know?
Yeah.
And I explored this on a recent podcast, is like the only reason that we're able to even have a term for NPC is because of video games. Like nobody was talking about NPCs in the 1920s. Like there was no faculty to kick around the idea. And you mentioned mimicry. Our
Always.
NPC discussion now is a mimicry of what they have introduced to us through video games. Like they introduced this idea of non-player characters, and look at us now applying this video game element in a big way and within this community. And we talk about NPCs all the time. Guilty as charged. I talk about NPCs all the time. But I am now realizing that, like, wow, even my vocabulary for NPC, my concept of NPC, none of this would exist had it not been for gameplay, for video gameplay, you know?
That's a good point.
I don't know.
Me too. I mean, I play a lot
Which
of those
makes me think
survival
of the-
games, and you know, you get your inventory and you build up those long-term realistic day-night cycle games.
Yeah,
I'm
where you kinda-
obsessed with those.
And you kind of huddle up, resource building, resource
Yeah,
maintenance and
yeah.
management. I was actually having this conversation today, talking about how I feel like the way that I played video games as a kid, and I gamed, I liked to game, but the way that I would play the games was I was really heavy on resource management. I would expend a lot of energy up front and in certain periods to garner and collect and get all these things together, get all my apples or whatever it was, or dollar bill, whatever game it was, whatever you're trying to collect, armor, whatever, you know. And I would spend a lot of time doing that, and I felt that was very important because I knew that it would pay off dividends down the road. And instead of being like always like, where's my this, let me get, like, I was like, that was my style of gameplay. And games allow you to play that way, and they also allow you to not play that way. But I was like, man, that's deep rooted in my personality, because I operate my life like that. I've been squirreling away for the past 7 years in a certain way, and like now I'm in another room of my game now, and it's just so weird. It's so weird how the way that I played games as a child, as a kid, learning, developing this and understanding is like now mimicking. It's another mimicking.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Oh my God, my favorite game is Doom. It's always been Doom. It's always the most brutal game,
so
right?
Brutal. The music,
But,
the
yeah,
sounds. We're talking about metal.
course. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. My God, that's me coming out of the metal, evil, like not satanic closet. It's so sad.
Doom has a ton of symbols.
It's all there, man. And then you look at, it's like,
Yeah,
oh, it's
symbols.
Bethesda. It's Bethesda. It's the biggest gaming corporation other than Microsoft. It's huge.
Bethesda,
So it's like,
Bethesda, Maryland. Are they based?
I don't know if they're based there or not. I'm not sure if that's what they're
But it's
based on.
Bethesda with a B.
It's Bethesda.
Bethesda.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah,
Interesting.
that's just
like
a side, but
yeah,
but it's interesting to know that, like, now there's news stories going on, like eventually we're gonna need Marines for Mars. I'm like, oh, so Doom's coming true. Great,
for Mars?
thank you. Yeah, great.
Oh,
Thanks.
boy. Oh, thanks, Elon.
Yeah, thanks,
Thanks,
predictive
Elon.
programming and God
Exactly.
knows what else.
Characters.
Dude, I feel like we could probably go on.
We could go
till
on forever,
7
but
in
yeah,
the
we probably
morning,
gotta-
but we're probably gonna sign off. But thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you,
on.
listeners. Thank you for having me. This was really
This was
fun.
so much fun,
This is
dude.
super
And
duper fun.
I hold no judgments because my perception of reality is so so out there, man, that like I needed to have this conversation for my own benefit as well. Like I really, not just for my listeners to get totally freaked out.
What's going on? I'm
Yeah,
scared.
man. Like, because I feel like we always progress each other with conversations like this, especially when we get to lose track of time and just go off in any direction
That's
we
my
want.
favorite part.
I really
That's my
feel like
favorite
it helps build,
It's
help
okay
go
to
up
have
those
stuff like
spirals.
this. It's okay to experiment mentally. You know, we experiment all the time with all sorts of things. Why not do that same thing with your thoughts? You know, why not experiment with your thoughts? It's okay. You'll come back, you know. Or you can
Damn
come
right.
back better or change, you know. Or you may never come back. Oh,
Dun,
you know.
dun, dun. You may end up in the living room instead of the studio, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, you
So please, before you go, tell my audience where they can find you.
All right. Okay. So yeah, I'm on Twitter is my main platform. That's where I kind of do a lot of my verbalization, my communication is on Twitter, and that's at Human Vibration. And then I'm also on Instagram, Human Vibration _Insta. And then also Realize Radio is available on all major podcast platforms. Season 1 is 8 episodes. We have a Patreon, Realize Radio. I also have another Patreon with my Maria. We have a show called Mating in the Matrix, and that is a Patreon show about relationships within this realm. You know, how do you navigate? If you find yourself in the truth community, sometimes it can be somewhat difficult to find people that you feel comfortable connecting with, and like that is from all forms of connection. You know, however you want to verbalize that. But I think so. That's Patreon at Mating in the Matrix, and I think that's it. And then yeah, that's all. But
Cool.
and a bunch of podcasts. If you just want to search Human Vibration on like podcasts, you'll come up with a bunch of my episodes that are guest episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I love this conversation. This was a lot of fun. And yeah, I wish you all the best on season 2 and this weekend. Have a great weekend.
This was awesome. Oh, I thank you. I think that I was meant to talk to you today, and you're my last podcast recording before this experience. And I talked to someone who you seem to encourage this.
Yeah, I wanted to chat with you about that after this. Yeah. Real quick.
Okay. We'll do. Okay.
So, this has been the Deep Share, and thank you guys so much for listening. And check out Human Vibration. See you later.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Deep Share podcast. If you want to hear more, then hit that subscribe button. Follow me on all the social places. And remember, think for yourself, but don't always believe what you think. Till next time.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, vegetarian. Enough, I get the point.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone.
What do we know? What do we know? If I know what we know, then I can tell you what we know, and if someone else knows, okay? I mean...